guys, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. We've got part 2 of the history of Judo that's going to be done by Dr. Dean. I want to thank you guys for giving us a thumbs up on all our videos. I want to thank you for subscribing so that you can be kept up on these videos as we come through with new ones. And I also want to send you over to our Patreon channel where Dave Kama goes and does his technique videos on the Rickson Gracie Invisible Jiu-Jitsu stuff that we think is just so important to know. However good you are in Jiu-Jitsu, you definitely will benefit from a lot of these concepts. But anyway, let's kind of go on to finishing our history of Judo, part 2, and I'll kind of step out and we'll have Dr. Dean take over. Thanks.
All right, so we talked about the development of Judo prior to World War II and how it spread throughout Japan and really spread throughout the world through its effectiveness in contests of various sorts. After World War II, Judo is pretty firmly established throughout the world as you have Judo schools emerging, literally everywhere. The focus of Judo starts to change and you start to get more and more competition between various schools of Judo using Judo competition rules. So in 1951, the International Judo Federation is created, and the IJF sort of regulates the development of contests and contest rules throughout the world. So you start to see, things like, lengths for matches, how to score, and a more sort of a systematized and standardized set of competition rules that judoka from various countries, various schools can compete against each other. In 1964, Judo enters the Olympic Games. The 1964 Olympics, Judo has the sort of international status as being an Olympic sport. And that means that a lot of schools, follow the kind of IJF and Olympic style Judo with its own contest rules that's really designed to test your skills against other judoka. Again, remember, pre-World War II, Judo was taking on all challengers. They were battling different styles of Jiu-Jitsu, they were taking challenge matches, they were fighting wrestlers and boxers under a variety of different contest rules. But with the development of the IJF and the entry of Judo into the Olympics, it really becomes Judo versus Judo using its particular set of sport rules. So competition in Judo is known as Shiai. The competition rules sort of structure the incentives that players have, right? All sports have rules, rules create incentives, and incentives sort of focus your attention on particular training methods and particular techniques that are important for winning in competition. So competition has, methods for scoring points. So in Judo, an ippon wins the match, a submission wins the match, or a pin. And you can get sort of partial points for throws that are not successful or pins that don't last the full time. You also get later the establishment of more and more weight classes so that two judoka that are facing each other in a tournament are pretty much within, maybe 10, 15 pounds of each other. So you can rely much more on strength and power if you're fighting someone that's about the same size, rather than, again, Judo's original purpose, which was someone could take on all comers, someone much bigger than you, and you could do well using perfect technique rather than relying too much on power. So weight classes have the effect of pitting people of about the same size in which strength becomes relatively more important. But if we sort of go back to this classification of Judo techniques, right? So if this is all of Judo, and Judo contains throwing techniques, or nagewaza, grappling techniques, pins and submissions, katamewaza, and also atemiwaza. If this is all of Judo, Shiai, or competition, only allows a subset of the complete art of Judo. Atemiwaza is out completely. In terms of katamewaza, there are certain joint locks that are banned. So wrist locks are out of Judo competition. Any attacks below the belt, so knee and ankle locks, are banned in competition. And there's also limited time in groundwork. So in a Judo match, you really only have about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds if you're lucky, to work on your ground game in a competition. And then some throws are also limited in Judo. But what happens is, because a lot of schools are focused on competition and focused on the next tournament and training for the next tournament, they're focusing on the subset of Judo techniques that are important for winning in Shiai rather than the complete art. And just to give one example, and something that was quite controversial in the Judo world, In 2010, the IJF banned leg attacks in judo competitions. So some very effective throws like single legs, double legs, kataguruma or fireman's carry. They're banned from international competition judo, and that filters down to the national level and the club level contests as well. This was a very controversial move. It was done, the purported reason was to make judo more of an exciting spectator sport in which people were doing the big, over-the-top ippons. At least that was the official justification. But leg attacks are banned, and many schools stopped emphasizing them in their regular club training. Not that they're not useful techniques or important techniques to know, but they can't be done in shiai, they can't be done in competition, so knowledge of those skills declined. And I would say most schools hardly teach leg attacks, if at all. Some people were unhappy with this rule, and Steve Scott in particular, along with a few others, formed the International Freestyle Judo Alliance, which is under AAU rules. Again, this is not a different style of judo, but it's a different set of competition rules that allow leg attacks and have a different format for scoring. So how does this relate to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? How does all of this discussion relate to BJJ? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu proved itself and became popular through things like Vale Tudo in Brazil, through the Gracie Challenges, through the UFC, in which Jiu-Jitsu showed that you could win on the ground. Even a much smaller person could defeat much bigger, much stronger opponents by knowledge of superior ground fighting. That's how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu becomes popular, and BJJ spreads throughout the world. And as it becomes more popular, because people like competing, people enjoy it, there's a lot of good skills and good things that you pick up in competition, but people gravitate toward competition. So now rather than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Judo sort of challenging various other styles and also incorporating and using what's best from a broad view of the martial arts, they focus on how do you win against another judoka? How do you beat another Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner in a contest with its own set of rules in which we understand how to score, how to win points, and so on. What's the upshot of all of this? Again, a lot of schools in judo are teaching a subset of judo that's effective in competition, and they're sometimes ignoring the traditional roots of the art and how the art developed as an effective martial art that could be used in self-defense, yes, but also in contests, and also as a system of mental training and so on. They're focusing on shiai rather than the whole art. Now, I'm not saying here that competition is bad, right? I enjoy competition, I compete, I love watching competition, it's exciting, and I think you actually develop a lot of good skills in competing, right? You have to fight through nerves, you have to develop much sharper mental focus, your training becomes more intense. So I think there's a lot of positive aspects to competition, as long as we recognize that it's not the whole of the art. And if we get back to the traditional roots and what was proven to be effective over generations, then we can have a much more well-rounded and effective set of martial arts. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the video. All right, so trivia time. I mentioned in the earlier video, this guy here, Vasily Oshchepkov, he was a Russian that trained at the Kodokan. He was one of the first Europeans, or one of the first non-Japanese to receive the Nidan, the second degree black belt. He studied at the Kodokan for many years and went back to Russia, where he, and along with several others, developed Sambo. Sambo is a really exciting martial art, and it's taught to the Russian military. But a little interesting tidbit, Oshchepkov was arrested and died in prison in 1938 because he was accused of being a Japanese spy. So if you don't know much about Oshchepkov or Sambo or the development of Sambo in Russia, check it out, it's interesting stuff.